everyone, Therese here. I hope that you are having a pleasant Mercury retrograde so far. We're in it. Mercury retrograde's happening. It's been an interesting one. Let's talk about it really quick and then we're going to move on to some fun topics. Started on the 13th, Divine Feminine. That's one of the things we're going to be talking about today. So Mercury's retrograde, which means that we're going inward, right? We're going inward when we're talking about mental processing and communication. It affects all of our communications that we have with each other as well as technology. Some people are seeing their technology acting up. Some people, communication can be strained because a lot of times what happens with Mercury retrograde is we internalize our communication. So, and I'm so guilty of this naturally, but we sort of have half the conversation in our head and say part of it out loud, but we forget that we only spoke part of it out loud, which can create miscommunication, and which means that other people can read it, like not fully get what we're saying and we're not aware of it. This can cause tension. So on a personal level, Mercury retrograde asks us to be more conscientious and listen more closely to others, ask more questions, ask if we're being clear in our communication, just really put more effort into communicating with one another. And that's how we smoothly navigate through any communication hiccups with Mercury retrograde. But also going inward means that stuff that's been hidden comes out, and we're seeing that in the public arena. We're watching that happen. So a lot of stuff will come out during this time that's been hidden in terms of communication. It shows up as communications a lot, like emails and any kind of documentation, right? And the other thing, by the way, on a personal level for Mercury retrograde is try not to sign anything during this time if you absolutely can avoid it. If you can't avoid it, read contracts thoroughly, right? So Mercury also rules over business and business dealings, so you want to be extra careful in committing to anything during this time and making sure that all T's are crossed and all I's are dotted and things like that. All right, but contracts, emails, any type of communication hidden can be surfaced, and we're seeing that play out in the public arena. So that's happening now. And this goes all the way to November 3rd, which is very auspicious in its timing. We're going to see how that plays out. It's going to be very, very interesting. Yeah, buckle up. We're on the roller. We're definitely on the roller coaster. And honestly, when you said that, it triggered the dream I had last night. I had this really bizarre dream. And I'm like, wow, I wonder if that would ever really happen. But I dreamt that there was this building that used to be like an apartment or a hotel, and it was transformed into like indoor biking. So I was biking indoors, like biking up the floors. They turned it all into ramps and stuff. It was wild. And it was kind of gamified where they had people I have to laugh, dressed up like dinosaurs. You know those inflatable dinosaurs? You know those inflatable T-Rex dinosaurs where people wear those? Well, they had like people wearing those, and you had to like bike around them, and they would try to attack you. It was so weird, but I was enjoying myself while biking indoors. So that just triggered a totally off-topic weird dream. Anybody else having that kind of weird? At least it was fun, right? Like at least it was fun. So, okay. So we're going to do karma cards tonight, and I also want to share with you the topic the team asked me to bring up. And this is really interesting because I practiced it last night, and I really could feel the energy. And then when I pulled the card asking like, what should I share? What do you want me to talk about? They asked me to pull the card, or they had me pull the card on divine feminine energy and how it's surrounding you. So that's what I want to talk about right now. Since Mercury went retrograde on the 13th, 13 is the number of the divine feminine. 13 in the tarot represents death, but it's not the death that we think about. It's literally about the new beginning. So it's all about transformation. The real name of the card, the 13th card, is transformation, because it's from going one phase to another. So with all of this happening on the 13th, it's this Mercury retrograde has to do with this divine feminine transformation. So let's talk about divine feminine energy and how it's not the same as sacred masculine energy. And of course, I'm sure all of us are going, duh, Therese, it's not the same. But it literally has a different essence, and I think we should talk about it, because for a long time, I personified divine feminine. I gave it like a persona, and that's actually a more masculinized projection of divine feminine energy. So we want to talk about how the two feel different, and they're very much they're connected. You need both. So sacred masculine energy. The sacred masculine is a doing energy, and it's present in all of us. It's present in women and men. It doesn't matter our gender. It is the energy of doing. In fact, and it's a giving, and it's an external, outward energy. It goes out into the world. So a great example of sacred masculine energy is the sun, because the sun is giving out. It gives out life, right? So that's why the sun is always it's a symbol of sacred masculine energy, where the moon is a symbol of divine feminine, which is receptive energy. But the moon is actually even like a misrepresentation of divine feminine. And we have to understand that divine feminine has so much. It's a different type of energy completely. It almost can't be symbolized. It's the absence of symbol, is what I would say, is a more appropriate representation of divine feminine energy. So another way of looking at sacred masculine energy is an archetype or a persona. It's because it's externalized. It has an external appearance. You can see it, actually. You can see the sacred masculine energy because of the nature of it, of being external, outward, giving. That is something you can actually get. It's almost like it has edges around it. How can I describe it? You can see it. It's symbolic. There's something there. There's an outward projection. So the divine feminine, though, would represent more of, instead of the moon, it would represent night, which is what a container. So the divine feminine is absent of a symbol or a structure or a persona, because it can't be contained. It is the container. So if we start understanding divine feminine energy is holding everything, including the sacred masculine, it starts to make more sense, because it is receptive, it's receiving, it's holding everything. And they want you to understand, the team saying, please remind them that they're being held constantly. We're all being held by this beautiful, loving, divine feminine energy. It's encompassing you. It's surrounding you. A great way to kind of think about it is a mother holding the child. You would be the child, and the divine feminine is enveloping you. It is holding you. It is watching you. It is looking out for your highest good. It's all around. It's all around. It's in everything. And it's not something that you can necessarily personify and see, because that would externalize it. To give it a persona would almost like see it outside of yourself. And what they want you to do is start to experience it by imagining it all around you. It is the empty space. It's the divine feminine. The void represents the divine feminine. The womb is the container, represents the divine feminine. It's everything around you. And it's so powerful when you start to perceive this energy that way. It's not something that can be personified. It can't be contained. It is the container. It is space, right? It's holding everything. And so the meditation I did last night was imagine sinking into it. Imagine it like flowing over you, almost like water. It's hard not to personify it. It is intangible. right? That's true. It's intangible. So it's hard not to personify because we want to know, we want to understand. And when we personify, we almost, we step out to look at it. And when something is surrounding you, it is the very container that you're in. It's hard to step out of that. So it's almost like you merge to experience her more fully, to experience divine feminine energy more fully. You want to merge. So the meditation I did last night that they'd like me to share with you, I was just laying in bed, and you know, in order to, again, it's kind of, you have to step away to go back in. It's very weird. It's like you step out to step in. But what I did was I imagined I was laying there and that I was in water, almost like one of those Renaissance paintings where you're floating in water and there's flowers all around you, right? Because that flower represents that same essence of divine feminine energy. But then you just imagine it like completely, you completely submerge yourself into it. And of course you can breathe, right? Because this is an energy feeling state. It's not a literal state, but you can literally feel it, just a warmth wash over you as you're completely held by it. And the idea is in the meditation is simply to surrender to that feeling of being completely submerged in that kind of energy, in a receptive energy. So when you're receptive, you don't reject. You're receiving. You can't, in a receiving state, you're not rejecting. You take it all in. It's a very interesting and different feeling because we, in our conscious state, we tend to want to be picky about what we take in. Well, I'll take in this, but I won't take in that. But that's not how the divine feminine operates. The divine feminine is holding it all, which means she's receiving it all. The interesting thing about receiving, that we're still being, and this is a higher level of consciousness. This is 5D. This is where, thank you team. This is where we're starting to move into 5D understanding. So on the 5D level, what we're doing here is we take it all. We become the container. We absorb everything. And I think there's a lot of fear around that. There's a lot of fear around absorbing everything because maybe the question is, won't I get lost? Maybe the questions are, if I take it all in, then it's going to get me somehow. It's a legitimate fear that people have. If I allow this information, if I take it in, maybe somehow I will lose myself, or it will get to me, or it'll influence me. There's I don't know all the fears that come in. But what actually happens is you become more, what you're doing is you're turning on your discernment. You have to let it in to become discerning. You have to let it in to know what your filters are. So what it is that it's actually learning how to trust yourself deeper, right? If you could be lost in the information or what you take in or what you see, that means that you don't have any sense of self around it, that you don't know what your own filters are. And your filters are your personal value system. Your unique personal value system is what will filter the information for you. So when it brushes up against a value where the information doesn't match your personally deeply held values, that's what will clear it for you. You'll go, yeah, that's not a match to me. So by learning how to become the container who's fully receptive, can't reject in a fully receptive state, and you allow it in, what happens is you activate your own levels of discernment. Your personal values become your filtration system, and you go deeper into self-trust, and you become more of a self-embodiment because you're becoming more sovereign. You're owning your truth. And that is what all of this should be measured against, is your truth. As if you've listened to the podcast I recently did on my Modern Mystic Soul podcast, I called that one The First Lie. And what that was talking about is the fact that there is a truth, one truth. And that is from the false timeline. That is from the artificial timeline, and it's very much dictated by someone who wants you to believe their perspective. And I say someone, but it's really like a system that wants you to believe in a certain perspective because there's an agenda behind that. Whereas the real truth is multidimensional, and it's based on you. It's based on you and your values and the life that you have been destined to live. You came here to live in a very specific way. You did. And as a sovereign being, you're allowed to do that. When you are fully self-ruled, it really is about your values. But if you're not allowed to experience what those are by taking everything in, you'll never quite know if it's your values or a value that's been conditioned into you. Take this on, right? We don't get to test that until we are not afraid to fully receive what's coming. It's this, don't be afraid to be the container that receives all. Trust your discernment. Your discernment is based on your values. Your values will filter the information and tell you, that's not true for me. That's not resonant. It'll tell you. And when you let that happen, you get more self-trust. You trust yourself more. And the more you trust yourself, the stronger your natural discernment becomes because you're actually using it. You're using it like a muscle. That energy is asking for you to have awareness that you are being held and that your highest and best good is of interest to the universe. Source energy, right, wants you to know that you are important and you are being absolutely looked after and considered. And so they're asking to spread that message. When we know that, we can relax into the arms of the universe. And the more we trust it, the more we experience what we can trust. It's very interesting because we get what we give, right? That's what they want us to know, is that's the golden rule, is you get what you give. So if you're in a space of, I don't understand it, but I'm going to surrender to this higher power because I trust it, then we get more to trust, right? Whereas if we move in the opposite direction and we go from that place of like, I don't trust this, we get more of that experience. We're simply given what we give into the cosmos, we get back. So, and it doesn't always look like a match, right? Sometimes we give deep trust and we see something weird and we're like, I trusted you and you gave me this. And then the response from the universe or your team would usually be like, just wait a minute before you think you know what this is. Just wait. Okay. And that usually hindsight's 2020. And you're like, I now understand why I was given this in response to what I asked for, because it always connects. And sometimes we don't get to see it until we look backwards. So it's always like, before we decide we know what something is, we want to be in that open and receptive place. We might be scared shitless to be in an open, receptive place, again, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. But if we can go into that trust that there is a reason that's connected to the highest good of all, what it does is it opens us up. We get to go through discernment. We get to see things from a place where it's matching our own values. We get to experience deeper self-trust, which always will be reflected into more trust in the universe. And then we get to watch that play out. So I know that's a big message. Maybe it's one of those messages where it doesn't seem as like concrete or succinct, but it's a universal truth. And as we allow it, so we have to, again, surrender into it. It's very, again, this is new earth teachings. It comes from that higher, more mature spiritual vantage point. And as we move up in that, we really get it. We really start to get it. So the beautiful news is, if these things are starting to trickle down, and it's not just through me, it's through so many channels are out there that are getting this information, which is really good news for us. It means we are spiritually maturing, whether you think you're seeing it yet or not. I understand, but we are. So if this information starting to come through about understanding what allowing and holding and being a container means and trusting that, if that's coming through, that's really good news for us. It means something's moving in the right direction. So again, it's one of those things where you got to go into surrender, go into allowing, and don't count the chickens yet. Watch it. Just be in that observer state and believe that the universe has your back. I really think it does. Now let's go into karma cards. And for those who are new at doing karma cards, let me just show you how these work. So I have 3 decks here. I have the planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what message do you have for us right now? And I've gotten 2 sets of answers. Oops, and thank goodness I looked in the camera. Okay, so I got 2 sets of answers. A set in red, these are action related answers, and a set in blue, which are outcome. And the way that you play is you just tune in intuitively and decide, do I need action right now? Do I need to know what action to take? Or are you looking for an outcome at this current point in time? So this reading is for today, which is October 14th through the 21st. And by the way, we have a new supermoon coming up on Friday. And I have my spirit circle happening then. If you want to join me, I will put the link somewhere in here. But there's a new supermoon coming. So that's pretty exciting. And today is an exciting day because there's a lot of Jupiter energy activated, and it's interesting because Jupiter shows up in the reading, but Jupiter is squaring both the sun, which is our being state, and it's squaring Mars, which is an action state, which are 2 fiery energies. Jupiter also rules Sagittarius, so it's technically considered like a fiery energy. This is passion. This is action. This is heart center. Fire represents the heart. It's so much intense energy. So let me tell you what it's about. So it's from today the 14th through October 21st. And the flavor of this reading while you're choosing is Jupiter, as I mentioned, very good. I always love it when Jupiter shows up in the sign of Cancer, which is the sign that represents the divine feminine energy, which I just got done talking about. So that's that nurturing energy again. In the 10th house, which is the 10th house of, external world, representing things like career, success, responsibility. The 10th house is ruled by Capricorn. It also represents the sacred masculine. So it's interesting that we've got the divine feminine and the sacred masculine showing up in the same reading. That's kind of cool. So let me tell you what's happening. So for those who are choosing red or action, your spiritual action, learn or teach your feelings responsibly. Learn or teach your feelings responsibly. I think the responsible part has to do with, again, this Mercury retrograde energy, and like responsibly means like pay attention to what you're saying, how you say it, make sure people understand. So if we're going to communicate that, learn or teach your feelings responsibly. The feelings are coming from Cancer. This is the nurturing mother energy. So when we tap into this divine feminine, like I talked about earlier, when we tap into that container space, it very much is connected to how you feel, which is also intangible. Learn or teach your feelings responsibly. Yeah, the team is saying, remember that your feelings don't always tell the truth about a situation. They tell you where you're at in frequency. So your feelings are your GPS system. They tell you how closely in alignment you are to your destiny or how far away you are. So your feelings give you a read on where you're vibrating at. And they're so helpful because if we can understand that they're telling us that when we're having low emotions, we're vibrating lower, we're in a lower frequency, we're not in alignment with ourselves, and we can make choices from there. However, many times we human beings just tend to take their feelings at face value. So they believe the story that their feelings are telling them, and they we misinterpret our feelings, and we're in Mercury retrograde. Misinterpretation is like on the, it's the action du jour right now. So we want to be aware what our feelings are. We want to learn about them, or teach about them, to share about them responsibly, like owning that, yeah, I'm misinterpreting my feelings. I don't know how many times a day I misinterpret my feelings as being the truth. That's okay. That's human. It's what we do. Feelings are very powerful. They're very influential. That's why they are used to sway and manipulate. That's why feelings are used in things like marketing. Getting to someone's emotions. If you can get to them emotionally, you've got them. So it's important to understand that. It's important to understand that our feelings are very persuasive, but they're not always telling us the truth. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So being responsible about that is being aware. Mental action at this time. Be positive about attitudes from the past about success. Be positive about attitudes from the past about success. Wow, this one's a weird one. That's really hard. That one's a hard one to interpret. Be positive about. Okay, so stay in a positive headspace. Attitudes about the past. This comes from Cancer. Cancer rules over the past. It also rules over the internal world, and it rules over family. About success. Wow, this is a weird one. Attitudes from the past. Yeah, I mean, what I'm getting is, again, it's still connected to communication. It's still connected to information that we've known. Not everything was wrong. That's an interesting way to interpret it. Not everything we had was wrong. Not everything that we did was off. And I think that sometimes when we're digging into ourselves and we're trying to work on ourselves, we can tend to dismiss former versions of ourselves as being wrong. I mean, we can kind of glaze over details and just say that whole thing was wrong. I'm a better version now. It's kind of like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Not everything about a former version of you was incorrect, right? Not all thinking was incorrect, and that can go internally for yourself, or it can mean the external world as well. And if we can positively identify what was working, we can keep using that and to move forward. Okay, so that is a tricky one to identify, but we got to be more meticulous in the details, which is what is Mercury retrograde is asking us right now. Be more meticulous with the details. Try not to wash over things. Try not to minimize. Try not to cast everything out because you're casting some aspect out. Physical action at this time. Grow and expand. Use your intuition and become a person of power and status. Power and status in this case is talking about sovereignty. Power and status with it. Be the most influential person in your own life. Like, right? The past was all about focusing on like, how many people can I influence, rather than, can I be the most influential person in my own life? Can I be the most credible person in my own life? The old paradigm was focusing on the external world and connecting power to that, where the new paradigm is internalized sense of power, which I feel is the actual upright use of power, is this sense of like self-governing, right? Okay, so grow and expand, use your intuition to become a person of sovereignty, self-sovereignty. Using your intuition, again, is about receptivity. Intuition is receptivity, which means, just like the team was saying earlier, when you become the receiver, the vessel that holds and receives, you have to take it all in. And we've got to get clarity around what we think receiving is, because I know that many of us try to filter before it comes in. We like try to put a filter on top of our chalice or our cup, and strain what we're going to get. And that's not how it works. The strainer's at the bottom of the cup, if that makes sense. Like we have to just redo that, which means we've got to let it all in. So to use your intuition, you have to let it all in first. Then you have the filtration and discernment systems that kick in there. And again, the filtration system is your personal values and what those really are. Many times we have values we aren't consciously aware of yet, but we'll find out if we let it in. Does that make sense? I hope so. Those who are choosing both or outcome with Jupiter and Cancer in the 10th house of the external world. Okay, so the spiritual outcome is the granting of intuition to protect your destiny. So you do it. That's what they're saying. In this period, you're going to learn, especially if you're here and you're listening and you're absorbing, which I think you are going to move your filtration system to the appropriate place, not at the top of the cup and trying to block things. You're going to let it all in. You're going to have your filter at the core of the cup. And you're going to have your natural values do the discerning system for you. And there are many rewards that come from that, including more intuition. And it protects your destiny because your values are directly aligned to who you intended to be, right? Your real values, you'll find out what they are. Yep. Mental. I love it when the team does that. They're like, cha-ching. Okay. The mental outcome at this time, blessings from the attitudes from the past about where you're going. This one has a deeper meaning, actually. Blessings from attitudes about the past from where you're going. This one is a more quantum cosmic point that they're making. Blessings from the past, this one goes like way back. And again, I'm getting Atlantis again. Definitely getting like past lifetimes. I'm getting galactic level of blessings from where you're going. So remember, before you got consciousness on this plane, you actually knew the whole thing. You knew the whole script, the whole story. You knew the part you were assigned. You were jazzed up. You were excited to play. You got cast. You were very excited. You celebrated with your team. This is a good thing. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. And there is going to be this granting of awareness. Many people are getting it. They're remembering things. I know that we just got another like DNA activation cellular memory download. I felt it come in last night. And when these come in, we all react to it differently. I got very like weirdly sick. Like it came in, it felt I got the nausea, I got the weird like pains I could feel it moving through my body. I was like, whatever this is, I'm not enjoying it. But I woke up and man, just a few more things came online where I was like, things are clicking that didn't click yesterday. They click today. So you will be given those during this period as well. Physical outcome. Good fortune resulting from the history of your career. Now remember, career in this case, this is coming from the 10th house, which also it represents career, responsibility, the external world, destiny, like what you're destined to do. So if the word career isn't resonating with you, connect it to the external world. I'll say it in a different way. Good fortune resulting from the history of your external life. Okay, so there's another way you could hear that. Yeah, there are things from the past, and again, this kind of reiterates the other side of this reading where the action was. Not everything you did was wrong. Not everything was something you have to get over or change. Give me a thumbs up if you understand that. If you tend to be a globalized thinker or a black and white thinker, an all or nothing thinker, or a perfectionist, type A, it's easy to want to scrap it all and be like, it didn't work. I'm doing it over. You don't need to scrap it all. In fact, you've had a thread moving you forward this whole time. You've had a thread connecting you to all the places you're going to go. You've actually been more on track than off track. It's really important to understand that and start honoring that. we have a tendency again to get really down on ourselves. If I was better, I'd be further ahead. If I was smarter, I'd have more of something else right now. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of programming, and I know I talk about that all the time, but we got it. We've got social conditioning. We're getting over it. I'm so excited about that. I'm celebrating that. But we have to have awareness first. So we have a lot of social conditioning that was meant to keep you feeling shitty about you, right? We also have a lot of I'm so tired of hearing this word, but propaganda is another way to say it around us that says you could be thinner, you could be more attractive, you could be with the love of your life, you could be more influential, blah 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 blah, all this stuff. But you're not. That's alluding to that you're not enough. The programming, the secret subliminal program has always been you're not enough, right? That's the through line of all of that. When it's better, newer, stronger, faster, blah, 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 that means whatever it is not enough, right? Do you hear it? Do you see it now? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. That's not always the case, though, and it's not accurately reflecting who you've been up to this point. You've been more than enough many times. In fact, you got yourself here. If you're still here, baby, you are more than enough. You are a badass. If you're in 2020 and you can smile, even just for a second, you're a fucking badass. Pardon my language. I'm sorry if there's any little ears listening, but you should know that. And it's time to acknowledge that, right? We can always improve. We can always adapt. We will adapt. We can always create better. We can always learn from our mistakes, but we are not a history of mistakes, and we're not a history of F-ups, right? We actually had more right than we realize. And until we acknowledge that from a place of self-love and self-understanding, we keep buying the BS. And I really feel like a lot of people have stopped buying the BS. And the more of us that stop buying the program, the conditioning, the less effective it is. And the less effective it is, the more people have self-sovereignty and that sense of power. And then they understand their own values and they make choices based from this very strong and centered and balanced internal place, right? And then the world reflects that. And then we see some really beautiful energy come forward. So I'm really excited about this reading because it's showing me that we're waking up. We're waking up to what we are. We're waking up to how to do it. We are no longer buying the I'm not enough story propaganda. And don't think that those who created the false timeline that want you to think a certain way, don't think they're not going to push that on you. They are. And in fact, at the end, when that timeline ends, they will push the hardest to keep it going. So we're going to feel that. We're going to feel them fight for their version of reality. They're going to fight till the end. But the thing that's interesting is, and that I'm watching and I'm feeling and I'm seeing, is people aren't buying it anymore. And so the tools they use to coerce, to control, are no longer effective, because when you know who you are, when you're grounded in yourself, they can yell and scream and flip out all they want. They can tell you you're not enough, but if you don't buy it, it has no effect on you. And what I'm getting from this is you're going to really start to embody that. I hope we do. In fact, I pray for that all the time, that people get how internally important they are. When they get that, when they honor that, they love that, then they're just full of that for other people, right? The ones who are flipping out and screaming and fighting and debasing others really are doing that to themselves first. They don't see their own value, and that's a shame. It's really a shame. And I pray for them. I pray for them to see that they are valuable, desired, they're wanted, they belong here. I want them to win, just as much as I want myself to win. And I honestly am seeing more people who vibrate that way, and that is beautiful, which means we are receiving the higher dimensional energy teachings from our higher selves because we're maturing. And part of it is just breaking it down. So what we're going to see is we're going to watch all of this attack on not just certain lines of thought, but individuals, just attacking your individuality, attacking you standing for yourself, attacking you, your enoughness, right? We're going to see that, but you're not going to buy it. And so therefore it's like watching children have tantrums. And from this place in yourself, you're going to be like, it's going to be, you just kind of think for them. They have to go through that because that's what they're choosing. But on the inside, you're like, and you're going to be okay, right? That is your higher 5D self coming through. And that's beautiful to watch. And I love watching people get over social conditioning and social rejection and social programming. Because that's not where we're going. That's going to be gone. And part of it is we kind of have to go through the ugly part of getting through it right now. So I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I hope what came through today gave you something to work with. I hope you know how much the universe loves you and supports you, has your back, and is bringing the very best forward for all of humanity. And we don't always get to know what that looks like. But if we just hold that place, be a receiver of it all, allow our values to be our filtration system and our discernment, and grow in our own sense of personal being. You understand who you are. The more you know you, the less you can be knocked over by negative lower programming. Sending you so much love. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I will see you after this new moon. Mwah. Love you. Bye. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.